Hello, good evening. Let's wait for someone to enter our live show. I still see nobody, but some people have subscribed, so I expect to see them very soon. Let's see in the comments. Okay. I can start inviting someone else also. Okay, I see plenty of invite. Oh, hello, Captain Jones. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. How are you? Can you comment? You should be able to comment. Hello, Pepe. Okay, some people have joined us. It's the right time. Hello, Agnello, by the way. It's the right time, so we can begin. I'll try to regulate the lights, but it seems we can't do so much for them. Okay, very welcome to this Halloween live show. Okay, now I think the lights are good enough. So welcome to this Halloween live show. Its title is Weird Queens. What do we mean for weird queens? Of course, I don't mean the evil queen of Snow White's fairy tale, even if I look a little like her today because of this cloak. But I mean real queens of the weird. I mean women writer who have written weird tales. I remember you that weird means a mix of horror, gothic, dark fantasy, and even a little science fiction sometimes. We usually remember many male writers, just like Bram Stoker or H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe, and so on. But this was also a literary genre practiced by many women. As far as Gothic fiction is involved, I should remember Anne Radcliffe, a great lady of the Gothic fiction in the end of the 18th century. But we are not talking of her this evening. It's not about her. It's about some women writers that we have almost forgotten and then now live again in this collection. As you can read, the title is Queens of the Abyss. And it's a collection of weird tales written by women authors and collected by Mike Ashley, who is the editor of this collection, from the British Library. This book is part of a very nice collection of tales found in the British Library. There are several volumes. There are volumes involving cursed romances, ghost stories, dark fantasy tales, and so on. All in this collection. I'll look for its name. Okay, its name is simply the British Library. So these tales have been found in the British Library. They were almost forgotten, and now they are printed and collected here, and we will read some of them. Before starting to read, I'll have to make apologies to you if I can't read all your comments very soon, because I have chosen this this size for the video, and so it's quite difficult for me to read your comments, but I will answer nonetheless. Okay. So I see some people are joining us. Some more people are joining us, so very, very welcome. We are starting reading. And how should I begin? Okay, let's see some titles. So let's see the table of contents. We have some enticing titles like A Revelation by Mary E. Braddon, The Sculptor's Angel by Marie Corelli, From the Dead by Edith Nesbit, The Christmas in the Fog by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Oh, Frances Hodgson Burnett. I think you should know her since she has written The Secret Garden. The Haunted Flat is by Marie Belloc Lowndes. A Modern Circe by Alicia Ramsey. The Nature of the Evidence by May Sinclair. The Bishop of Hell by Marjorie Bowen. The Antimacassar by Creia Laspina. The White Lady by Sophie Wenzel Ellis. The Laughing Thing by Gigi Penders. Candlelight by Lady Eleanor Smith. The Wonderful Tune by Jessie Douglas Kerwish. Island of the Hands by Margaret St. Clair. The Unwanted by Mary Elizabeth Councilman. And The Seventh Horse by Leonora Carrington. All these sound mysterious, dreadful, thrilling, but we will have to choose just some of them. Personally, I'd start with White Lady by Sophie Wenzel Ellis. Okay, I have personal reasons for preferring this. I have just finished to write and publish a novel dedicated to a famous white lady, to the ghost of a white lady, and so I'd like to compare this white lady to mine to see if there are any similarities. However, this is a theme I really love. Okay, so let's go to White Lady by Sophie Wenzel Ellis. Let's meet the author before starting tale. Who was Sophie Wenzel Ellis? Along with Creia Laspina, Sophie Wenzel Ellis, born in 1893 and dead in 1984, from Memphis in Tennessee, was one of the few women contributors of weird tales and the fantastic to the early pulp magazines. Her first such story was probably The Unseen Seventh, a ghost story in the Frill book in 1919 under her maiden name Sophie Louise Wenzel. She married lawyer George E. Ellis in 1922. Most of her fiction was either ghost stories or mysteries, mixed with a few romances, along with a brief foray into science fiction in 1930. Her recorded output barely reached 20 stories, and she was soon forgotten, but her contribution to the field of early science fiction and fantasy is at last being recognized. So these tales were published on magazines, pulp magazines. They were not considered high literature when they were published, but now they are precious documents of this literary genre we really love. So let's read White Lady by Sophie Wenzel Ellis. Brynhild knew that something had waked her, something pleasant and exhilarating, which was to be expected on this strange island in the most remote corner of the warm Caribbean Sea, where André Fournier, her fiancé, experimented fantastically with tropical plant life. Presently she heard it again, music so wild and delicate that she felt its rapturous vibrations in her nerves, rather than heard them. Below her, from the house to the placid sea in the distance, spread an unnatural panorama, lighted by the sun's gaudy hood just coming out of the water. Wow! She looked and was glad that she had accepted the invitation of Madame Fournier, André's gracious mother, to visit their lonely Ile de Fleurs. In a few minutes she was dressed and on the trail of the puzzling music. When she closed the back door behind her, she was immediately in a curious maze of floral wonders, unreal as a painting by Doré. Doré should be Gustave Doré, actually my favorite engraver. I hope you love his engravings too. He has created engravings and pictures for La Divina Commedia by Dante Alighieri. The jungles of the sun-warmed lands had given to André their rarest treasures, which now sucked a richer life from the black soil of the Ile de Fleurs. By the way, Ile de Fleurs in French is the island of the flowers. So it's a very fitting name. Nature, in her most whimsical mood, had not been permitted to rule here. Everywhere, among frond and spray and giant runner, bloomed hybrid blossoms whose weird forms and colors suggested André's tampering with nature. Brynhild heard the music clearer now, long notes that had an eerie, half-human sound, like the tuneless music of a demented savage. It baffled her, teased her into wilder plunges through the flower thickets, all jeweled with liquid beads. When she mounted a hillock and saw, just beyond, a tiny cage built of copper screen, she knew that she had reached her goal. The music seemed to come from this little bower, which was puzzling, for the sole occupant was a blooming plant. A golden gauze seemed to drop suddenly from the sky, which was the tropical sun's first rays shooting from the sea. The stronger light brought a gasp from Brynhild, for now she could see that even in this land of queer vegetation, the imprisoned plant was a monstrous alien. From a mass of thick frondage, white and fleshy as her own bare arms, reared a flower whose round, pallid petals formed a face like the caricature of a woman. Draped around this eldritch flower face and flowing down to meet the colorless foliage was a mass of gauzy matter that had the startling appearance of a bridal veil. Wow! But what brought a cry from Brynhild was not the human look of this fantastic plant, but what it was doing. Just below the head, almost as large as her own, protruded two slender, dagger-pointed white spines, set in sockets in such a manner that they could be moved like arms. These two spines, rubbing together, produced the music that had captivated her. After the first frightful moment of comprehension, she longed to see the spectacle closer. She pressed her forehead against the copper screen. Instantly the spines ceased their serenade. The white flower face turned and fronted her, and she felt eyes watching her, eyes she could not see. For a moment, flower and foliage remained rigid. Then a spasm passed through the entire plant, the arms came together again, and a hideous discord shrieked out. Brynhild, sensing that her presence had caused the change from elfin music to the blood-freezing dissonance, dropped behind a concealing thicket and watched. While she waited, footsteps approached. André was coming. Like a tall young pagan priest, he came forward, arms and shoulders naked, sunshine splashing his bronze curls. He had a beautiful, poetic face and a luminous smile that was now turned on the strange plant. Instantly, the flower music commenced again, louder and more seductive than ever, the queer blossom reeling on its stem, as though animal excitement quivered through its pallid flesh. André called out in his soft French, "Bonjour, white lady. Are you happy this morning, eh?" The woman's face swayed towards him. The dagger arms caressed each other rapturously. Brynhild crouched lower behind her hiding place, each moment more astonished and horrified. André lifted the latch on the door and went inside. The music sank to a low, plaintive, throbbing, tender as a bird's love song. André came closer to the flower and touched the white foliage with gentle fingers. Down drooped the flower head until the fleshy cheeks brushed his face. "Ah, ma petite," André whispered, "my own white lady, if I could but bridge the gap." Brynhild could endure no more. "André!" she shrieked, leaping from her hiding place. Instantly, the flower head stiffened and turned towards her with a gesture so human that the girl sickened. As André called out an impulsive greeting and came towards her, the unnatural foliage quivered violently and the daggers came together with a piercing din. "Oh, it seems the plant is jealous." "Oh," André laughed. "She's jealous, the white lady. Oh, it's like this. It's really like this." His English had the barest accent. "Did you ever imagine such a flower, Brynhild? Should you have believed if someone had told you of this?" "It is a nightmare." She covered her eyes with soft, beautifully formed hands. No, Brynhild. She's my dream, materialized." "Stop! I can't bear to hear you speak of it as though it were a woman." Her face had blanched until it was as pale as the flower before her. In the cage, a terrific noise was going on, shocking in its metallic harshness. André turned around and looked at the flower. "I'd better go to it for a moment, dear. Come, but lady's like a dog. If you are good to her, she'll respond with love that is almost human." Hesitant, as though she had feared something evil, Brynhild entered the cage behind André. André caressed the leaves and put his face against the human-like head. The daggers, rubbing together, gave forth a feline purr. "Come, Brynhild," said André with his lucent smile. "Let her." Brynhild shrank back. How could she touch those leprous, fleshy leaves, that flower faces as natural as a vampire's? Trembling, she reached out her little hand to the bleached foliage. Quick as a streak of lightning, the dagger struck at her, viciously inflicting a long bleeding scratch on her hand. The girl screamed and fell into André's arms. "Darling!" groaned the young man, bending over her solicitously. "I never thought—" Brynhild buried her golden curls against his shoulder. "André," she sobbed, "I can't endure it. That monster! It hates me." Her voice rose hysterically. "Why did you create it?" "Hush!" He spoke sternly. She never would have scratched you if she hasn't sensed that you are an enemy." "You're mad!" She broke from his arms and raised her beautiful face angrily. "This vile monster has gone to your head. No, as always, you prefer your unnatural flowers to me." Her white skirt flashed through the open door and on out between the flowery tangle beyond. He followed her, calling a contrite apology. When he caught her and again held her fast in his arms, they were both breathless. "Pardon-moi," he pleaded, his thin spiritual face full of penitence. "But, Brynhild, I'd give half my life if you'd love plants as I do." And with his hand pressing hers, he told her, in his peculiarly quiet voice, of the supreme joy that can be had from a sympathetic understanding of nature's strange ways. "Man has a connection to plant life," he said, "which all scientists will someday concede. Naturalists already agree that there is no real dividing line between the lowest forms of plant and animal life. And what is man but the highest animal?" He had grown excited, as he always did when discussing plants. His sensitive face glowed with earnestness. "Who can say," he continued, "how close is the kinship between animals and the carnivorous plants that devour meat? White Lady is not the only plant that has voluntary motion, nor is she the only one that senses instantly the presence of the destroyer." He looked at her intently. "Some of our commonest garden plants have eye cells in the epidermis of leaves and stalks, eyes that have lenses and are sensitive to light. White Lady is the result of careful crossbreedings that have developed the most human-like traits found throughout plant life. Oh, Brynhild," he held her hand against his cheek, "if you could only understand it here, you would not be shocked that my White Lady is more than an animal plant, that the exquisite, lovely thing has intelligence." A long shiver ran through the girl's slender body. "It is wrong to bring such a monstrosity into existence, André." "No!" His eyes filled with tears. "My only sin is that I developed just one. Had I developed two, White Lady would not now be the loneliest living thing in existence." He flushed as he spoke. Sudden, horrible understanding gripped Brynhild, understanding so overwhelming that she swayed dizzily. "That monster, it loves you, André. It loves you as a dog loves its master." He stroked the gleaming gold of her hair, all alive under the sunlight. "Don't go near it again, dear one," he soothed. "There might be real danger for you. No, there. Mother is calling out to breakfast. Be happy and smiling, won't you?" He tilted up her chin and kissed her gently. At the breakfast table, Madame Fournier was very much disturbed. André took nothing except milk, into which he dissolved a pinkish pellet. "No coffee this morning, son?" asked the mother anxiously. André flushed. "No, mother. Just milk." "Why, André?" protested Brynhild. "You scarcely eat enough to live. I watched you last night. You actually shivered over the lettuce mother made you eat. Don't you feel well?" "Excellent. Remember that I drink quantities of milk." After breakfast, Madame Fournier drew Brynhild aside. "I'm uneasy," she said. "André is becoming fanatical in his love for growing things. Think of it. He says he can hear his lettuce cry out when he cuts into it." "A year ago," shivered Brynhild, "I'd have called that nerves. But now that I've seen that monstrous White Lady thing..." She put her hands over her eyes. No more that day did Brynhild go near White Lady. That night, while the island slept, she sat by her window and enjoyed the splendor of the moon-bathed panorama. Dimly, from the enchanted flowery reaches, came stealing the wild music of White Lady. With the first note, Brynhild stiffened, but as the seductive sounds and their sorcery through her, she listened with increasing delight, forgetful of her horror of the morning. Within a few moments, she was reaching for her dressing gown. Following where White Lady's music pulled her, Brynhild stepped lightly through the thick leafage, exalted as though she were blown along by a jubilant wind. Andre's strange world of flowers was like the inside of a giant pearl, for the Caribbean moon, riding full and low, had bleached the island to a luminous whiteness. From the pale hypnosis above and from the honeyed breaths that trembled over the flowers, she drew a new kinship with nature. There was solemn joy in knowing that the same mysterious force called life, which animated her own young body, also sent the sap flowing through the plants about her. Every growing thing on the island seemed to respond to the beauty of the night as happily as she. On all sides, flower faces that seemed delirious with the joy of living lifted to the white radiance above. The beauty of the world, then, did not exist for man's sole enjoyment. Perhaps there was truth in Andre's contention that plants, with their partially developed consciousness, respond with more delicate delight than cultivated men to such elemental joys as the beauty of moonlight and the soft kisses of the night wind. She was sure of this when she saw White Lady. The mysterious woman flower was moon-mad. The roof of the bower built to shade partially cut off the moon which was directly above, but White Lady had curved her stem so that her face reached the light. The music that throbbed from the robin arms was so rapturous that Brynhild felt her senses reel. She threw herself upon the grassy ground directly in front of the cage. Instantly, the music ceased, and the monstrous blossom withdrew to the shadows, where it stood tall and straight on its rigid stem, spectral in its veil and cadaverous foliage. Brynhild was prepared for the hideous discord that she had heard in the morning, but from the shadows came such low, enticing harmonies, sweet as the breathings of a wild harp, that she drew closer. The nearer she approached, the dimmer came the music, until the horrible thought came to her that White Lady was enticing her within the cage. Pressing her hands over her ears, she fled, frightened with the paralyzing fear of the unknown. The next morning, when she told Andre, he caught her in his arms and cried out, "Keep away from her! As you value your life, keep away! She has intelligence, but no conscience, no pity for what she hates." "But Andre," she searched his ascetic face closely, "will you let such a thing live? Shan't you cut it down?" "Cut down my White Lady, the supreme achievement of my life." He looked as though he thought her insane. "Not even though it hates me, Andre. Not even though it is trying to destroy me. But he warned you to keep away. Wouldn't any human being have a right to fight an enemy? You are her enemy, and she knows it." The dispute ended with Brynhild in tears, but with Andre as firm as ever about not cutting down his unnatural creation. Brynhild was jealous of a flower, and her jealousy increased with the passing of time. Whenever she heard the seductive song of White Lady, elemental hate surged in her heart. She wanted to destroy it, to tear apart those thick white leaves, to crush that singular woman face under her heel. She was afraid to go too close to the screen cage, but sometimes she stole near enough for a good glimpse of the flower. Always she was delighted to see the rage of the horrible thing, and at a safe distance laughed at the shrieking dissonance that the flower's striking daggers made. At times, when she approached the cage, White Lady nearly stiffened, and then Brynhild knew that it watched her as a cat watches a mouse. Andre had told her that the invisible eyes in the leaves and stem were very highly developed. It gave Brynhild unholy delight to know that her very presence was torment to this human flower that seemed to adore Andre. As though the thing could understand, she would stand at a safe distance and tell how Andre loved her, and of the wedding, which was only 3 weeks distant. Once after a scene like this, White Lady lunged at her so viciously with her daggers that Brynhild was barely able to escape. And the girl knew that sooner or later one would succumb to the other. It shall be that Bête Blanche, thought Brynhild, quoting the name that Madame Fournier had given the plant. I'm not so sure. I'm not as sure as she is. As the days passed, Andre grew thinner, whiter, more spiritual. He was absolutely unlike the brown young athlete with whom Brynhild had fallen in love 2 years ago in Bermuda. It's the way he eats, moaned his mother. How can a strong man who works live on little less than milk? What are we to do, Brynhild? He's killing himself. Sometimes I even wonder if his mind is not going. She began to cry softly. Did you notice him in the rain yesterday? No, tell me. He walked around as in a dream, with his white face held up towards the dripping sky. When I went to him and asked him to come in, he refused. He told me to leave him alone because he had found a mood in which he could react to the cool rain just as a plant. He's doing something mysterious to make himself as much as possible like things that grow in the ground. It's that White Lady, said Brynhild bitterly. Constantly brooding over a monster like that will unhinge anyone's mind. The horrible freak is getting on my nerves too. I do silly things. She blushed, thinking of her own sins with the strange plans. We'll have to watch him, Brynhild. Brynhild did watch, and thereby brought greater suffering to herself, for her surveillance revealed that he not only spent much of the day with White Lady, but that he often went to the plant at night. Much of his passion for herself had died. His love seemed to have ascended to a spiritual plane which was ethereal in its purity and tenderness. He spoke no more of their approaching marriage, seemed almost to have forgotten it. When the two were alone, he frequently turned the conversation to morbid subjects. Death is beautiful in a land of flowers like this, he told her. Isn't it a happy thought, Brynhild, to know that when you are put into the warm, sweet earth, your body resolves into its chemical elements and again reaches up to the light in leaf and stalk and fragrant bloom. One night, when the forgotten wedding was only a week off, Andre fainted. After he had responded to the frantic ministrations of his mother and Brynhild, he turned his great dark eyes pleadingly to them and gasped, I want you both to make me a promise. What, son? Asked the mother. Then when I'm dead, You'll bury me not too deep under my white lady. His tired lids flutter down. Oh, mother, to think of the roots of that sweet creature reaching down for me and resurrecting my atoms to a newer and sweeter life. Andre, darling, don't! You're breaking our hearts. But will you promise? Yes. Oh God, help me. With Andre restored and quiet in his room, Brynhild and Madame Fournier sought a secluded corner for their frantic grief. It can't go on another day, daughter, said the mother. Andre will die before the wedding. We must destroy that bête blanche. But mother, wouldn't that grieve him too much at this time? Rather a few days his grief than a grave under that monster. Madame Fournier shuddered. Where is the eggs, mother? Brynhild's face was as pale as her dress. I'll do it, my dear. I'm an old woman and his mother. Perhaps it might be something like murder to kill that human thing, but I have a mother's right. No! Brynhild's voice was almost fierce. I want to do it! White lady hates me and I hate her. Where is the eggs? Wait a little. It's early. One of the workers might see you. And Brynhild waited until the night grew older and blacker, when she crept from the house with an axe and a flashlight. There was no moon tonight to guide her through the flowering mazes. A strong wind coming from the sea followed behind her like an animal sniffing her footprints. It pulled her skirts and her long flowing sleeves and whipped her hair across her face. She had the furtive feeling of one who plans a deed of blood and violence. In her mind, she outlined what she must do. She would place the flashlight so that its light could fall upon White Lady. Then she would quickly unlatch the door and chop. Never had White Lady been so beautiful. In the glow of the flashlight, she stood straight and silent in her waxy foliage, with the gossamer veil whipping around her eerily, and her dagger arms folded like a demure bride waiting for her bridegroom. Brynhild never knew what to expect from this unnatural creature, and its silence frightened her more than the wildest noise it had ever produced. Before lifting the latch, Brynhild stood regarding it, horrified, trembling, pitying. White Lady was watching too, and waiting. The moment Brynhild opened the door and went inside, a scream like the piercing voice of a woman tore through the night. Again and again the awful shriek wailed from the scraping dagger arms, and Brynhild knew that it rolled on the wind to the ears of listeners in the house beyond. Her nerveless hands almost dropped the axe. How could she wield her weapon against that fleshy, human face, against the thing that could cry out like a woman? But Andre's burning eyes haunted her. She must, for his sake. And now? What will happen now? Let's see. Grasping and raising the axe, she went forward, with the wind pushing at her body and snatching her hair over her eyes. The axe fell with poor aim. It merely crashed through part of the foliage, which cracked with a sickening snap of crushed bones. One more dreadful shriek rent the night, a shriek of murder and of rapine, but before its shrill echoes died, another and less hideous woman voice gave an agony cry. It was Brynhild. The wind, tampering with her clothes, had blown her long, loose sleeve against White Lady, where it caught or was grasped by one of the dagger arms. The other dagger arm lifted and plunged, lifted and plunged. The girl was wild with pain and fright. Held fast as she was, she could scarcely use the axe to advantage, especially as she was forced to avoid the stabbing dagger. The white veil fell from the thing's head. Before Brynhild could again wield the axe, another dagger thrust found her body. Through the flesh of her left shoulder it cut this time, and she crumpled, half fainting. Even as she fell, she heard the running feet. Andre's voice called out, "Brynhild!" Instantly, White Lady paused in her stabbing and sent forth another shriek of triumph. Then again the dagger plunged, and Brynhild felt the warm blood flow from her arm. She never completely lost consciousness, and dimly she was aware of chopping blows made by another end of her left arm coming away from its horrible mooring. She felt herself lifted and carried for several yards. She felt Andre's rough, unshaved cheek against her own, and heard soft love words fall from the lips that bent to hers. Andre led her down carefully and shouted for help. Poor fellow, there had been a time when she could have carried her all around the island. With a supreme effort, Brynhild opened her eyes. The flashlight was still where she had placed it, so that its round eye fell upon White Lady, or what was left of her. Now the plant was only a mass of crushed leaves and petals. "Yes, I did it," came Andre's stern voice. "The bat blanche would have killed you, darling." He kissed her hungrily. "I've been a beast myself, and a fool. Forgive me." And later, after Brynhild's gaping wounds were dressed, she heard Andre say four simple words that filled her with delight. "I am hungry, mother." Okay, Ari, what do you think? For the newcomers, I remember we have read the tale White Lady from this collection, Queens of the Abyss, a collection of tales from the British Library. The women author of White Lady was Sophie Wenzel Ellis, one of the few women contributors of the pulp magazines that published weird tales. Okay, I don't know what you think of it, since there are no comments in the chat, but I have found it powerful. It really makes a good point. Mankind is more and more aware of the sensibility of other forms of life on this planet. Now, neurobiology has proved that also plants have their own sensibility, their own way to react to the environment, their own way to relate to what surrounds them. Maybe White Lady is just fictional, but there's a true side. There's a true side. There is some truth in her, and it's that plants have their own life, have their own sensibility. They are living beings capable to feel pleasure and pain. And so this challenges us to rethink our relationship with nature. And this is very actual. This is very modern, since we have to face something like vegan habits that's about the animals' sensibility, but now we should also think how to relate to plants. We we have to arouse our environmental sensibility without losing the way to sustain our own lives. Sadly, we are not merely spiritual as Andre tried to become. Sadly, we have to feed ourselves. We have to accept the price that life has. But how should we choose between sympathy for other living beings and our own needs? Okay, it seems that the answer is love. Andre had to choose between two different kinds of love, and he chose to be a human being again. He accepted to be human with all his human needs. Well, this does not prevent him and other human beings to go back to nature when they are dead. It's like Andre has told, when we will be dead, we'll be buried, and our body will feed other living beings. We will feed also plants. We will somewhat give back what we have taken. But before that, there is life. Our life as a fleshy human being. Fleshy from flesh as a body, you mean? As body, you understand. Okay. We have 15 minutes. I don't know if there are other tales we can read in such a small time. Let's read again the table of contents. Okay, there's The Laughing Thing by Gigi Penders. Let's see how long is it. Okay, it's pretty long. Maybe I could read some pages and then leave to you the pleasure of going on your own. So, let's read The Laughing Thing by Gigi Penders. And let's see who Penders was. Gigi Penders was really Gladys Gordon Trinery, born in 1885 and died in 1938, born in Liverpool of a Cornish family. She spent much time in Cornwall, the setting for several of her stories. She worked as a journalist and turned to writing fiction in 1923 with The Kabbalist. Her 1924 story, The Devil's Graveyard, was reprinted in Weird Tales in 1926, the first of 19 stories she would sell to the Unique magazine. Several of her stories were about possession in one form or another. The Grave at Goonhilly, 1930, has an evil magician whose power continues after death in a parcel of land. From the Dark Hills of Hell, January 1932, has a violinist whose playing summons an evil force which creates a battle between life and death. Perhaps her best-known story, Think of Darkness, August 1937, is a haunted house story set near to where she lived in the Wirral. She made no collections of her stories during her lifetime, but two posthumous volumes are Think of Darkness, 2005, and 30 Pieces of Silver, 2009, the latter collecting together her Oriental stories. So the works of by Gigi Penders seem very enticing. Let's read The Laughing Thing. Very well, Mr. Drew, I'll sign the agreement, though no one but you would drive such a devil's bargain. The speaker's tall, emaciated body vibrated with indignation, and his strange light eyes blazed like incandescent lamps. There was something of the broody menace of the grey sea in the letter, and the note in his voice reminded me of the sullen mutter of the wind before a storm. A little shiver of apprehension ran through me as I turned from him to my brother-in-law, Jason Drew. Nothing could have been more utterly and infuriatingly complacent than the latter, who was leaning back in the most comfortable chair of my office afforded, with an expensive cigar in his mouth, his big frame clad in the smartest of light tweeds, and an orchid in his butthole. Jason was an extremely wealthy man, young enough to enjoy his money, and with a son to inherit his millions one day. The loss of Mavis, his wife, had been more of an annoyance than a grief to him. He felt that she had died merely to make things awkward for him. In fact, he added her death to the many grievances he treasured up against her. I knew that if there is such a thing as a broken heart, he broke my sister's, and I hated him for it. I would have cut off all intercourse with him, only that I had promised Mavis to keep an eye on the boy and counteract his father's influence as far as possible. Jason knew nothing of this. He believed I hung on to him for the sake of his wealth and treated me with it quite openly, in spite of the fact that I was never indebted to him for a single dime and would have cleaned the streets or sold hot dogs rather than owe him a penny. It seemed absurd to pity him, especially at this moment of his triumph, when he had succeeded in getting the land he wanted at the price he wanted, and was sitting there before me, as pink and pleased as a prize baby after its bottle. Eldred Wern, whom Jason had just cornered so successfully, was the one whom most people would have pitied. But I had only admiration for anyone as determined and strong of soul as Wern. Poor and desperately ill though he was not an object for pity. As junior partner in the firm of Baxter and Baxter, real estate agents, I was present to witness the signatures and conclude the deal between Wern and Jason. And I wished 1,000 times that Baxter and Baxter had never had this affair entrusted to them. It was a sordid, despicable business altogether. "I'll sign," repeated Wern, drawing his chair closer to my desk, and taking up the parchments in his thin, blue-veined hands. "The land shall be yours at your own price, for the present." Anger and distant suspicion showed in Jason's small, heavy-lidded eyes. "What the devil do you mean?" he said. "If you sign these papers, the land is mine, and there's no power on earth that can me pay more for it than the sum set down there in black and white." I wasn't thinking of money. Wern's voice was strangely quiet, and yet so full of menace that again I felt every nerve in my body thrill to it. "I am sure you will never pay more in money." "You're right, dead right, Wern." Jason's resonant voice echoed through the room. "And yet, I think you will pay more in the end. Yes, in the end, you will pay more, Mr. Drew." Jason turned to me, blustering and furious. "Aren't these deeds watertight? What does he mean? If there is any flaw in these agreements, I'll stamp you and your full firm out of existence." Before I could reply, Wern began to laugh. He sat there and laughed long and dreadfully, the bright color staining his thin cheeks, his grey eyes brilliant and malicious. He laughed until the cough seized him, and he leaned back at last utterly exhausted. An ominous stain on the handkerchief he pressed to his lips. "Let me relieve your natural anxiety, Mr. Drew," he said at last, his hoarse voice still shaken with mirth. "You will pay more, but not in money, not in any material sense at all." "What in the name of common sense do you mean?" growled Jason. "There is nothing common at all in the sense of which I speak," It is very uncommon indeed. I refer to payments which have no connection with money, nothing which can be reckoned in dollars and cents. Jason looked uncertain whether to call police protection or medical aid, and he watched Werner narrowly as the latter signed the documents. When the signatures were completed, Eldred Wern got to his feet and stood looking down at Jason, a long, strange, deep look, as if he meant to learn the other's every feature off by heart. Behind Wern's eyes once more a sudden, terrifying flame of laughter danced, flickered, and was gone. You don't fear any payment that will not reduce your bank account, then? What other payment is there? Asked Jason in genuine surprise. You're wonderful, said Wern. So complete a product of your age and kind. So logical and limited and, excuse me, so thoroughly stupid. Jason's fresh-colored face turned a deep purple. If you are not a sick man, he began, and one, moreover, whom you have thoroughly and satisfactorily fleeced, interpolated Wern. I should resent your remarks, continued Jason pompously. As it is, I see no use in prolonging this conversation. Stay, cried Wern, as Jason put on his fur coat and prepared to depart. It is only fair to warn you that if I die out there in Denver City, I shall come back again. I shall be in a better position then, without this wretched body of mine. I shall come back to make you pay a more satisfactory price for my Tarrytown acres. Jason stared, standing in the doorway, with one plump, well-manicured hand on the doorknob, looking like a great shaky ox in his fur coat, and with that air of stupid bewilderment on his broad face. What? He stammered. Then, as the other's meaning slowly dawned on him, he leaned up against the door and showed every tooth in his head in a perfectly bellow of mirth. Are you threatening to haunt me? He choked away, the veins on his forehead swelling dangerously. Well, my good fellow, if it gives you any comfort to imagine that, don't let me discourage your little idea. You'll be welcome at Tarrytown any old time. The Tarrytown Spectre, eh? It'll give quite an air to the place. What kind of payment will you want? Moonshine, eh? Jason almost burst with the humor of this remark. Moonshine and ghosts! Seems the right sort of mixture. With a last fatuous chuckle, Jason opened the door. And through the window I saw him get into his new coupe and drive off, his face still crazed in enjoyment over his last sally. The descent of man, murmured Wern half to himself. There's no doubt that Jason Rio has descended a considerable way from the apes. The fool, the blind, besotted fool. Okay, this tale has begun very, very well. I may say it promises our so much entertainment, and maybe we should go on for half an hour, for half an hour more. Let's read some more of this tale. I really like it, and I hope you do too. By the way, if you are enjoying this live show, I pray you to leave some signs of your appreciation, sending me some presents here on TikTok. They are quite important to support me, just like other streamers. Okay, let's go. It was a perfect day in the late autumn of that same year when, for the first time, I saw the Terrytown estate. I dismissed my taxi at the huge stone gateway and walked slowly up through the woods. After the hectic rush and noise of New York, the golden stillness around me was deeply satisfying, and I thought of poor Eldred Wern, who would never know the beauty and healing peace of this place again. I had seen the notice of his death in Denver City, only a month after he had signed away his rights to these lovely Terrytown woods, and I had thought very often since of the lonely bitterness which must have clouded his last days. Glimpses of the blue, shining Hudson shone between the trees, and beyond the flaming russet of the Palisades. On all sides the country stretched out to dim, misty horizons for which Wern's dying eyes must have longed in his exile. Then, quite suddenly, a chill passed over me. I became aware of the ominous and unusual stillness of the brooding woods. Neither bird nor squirrel darted to and fro among the leaves and branches, not even a fly buzzed about in the hazy sunshine. I looked around in gathering apprehension. What was it that began to oppress me more and more? Why did the tall trees seem to be listening? Why did I have the impulse to look over my shoulder? Why did my heart thump and my hands chill suddenly? Ah. With a great effort I restrained myself from breaking into a run as I continued upward towards the house. The path doubled back on itself across the shoulder of the hill on which the house, Red Gables, was built, and it was fully 10 minutes before I arrived breathless in sight of its red roof and high old-fashioned chimney stack. In a corner of its wide porch, I caught a glimpse of a boy's figure and let out a loud "Hello!" glad of an excuse to break the queer, unnatural silence. There was an answering hail, and my nephew, Tony, came running down the path to meet me. "Hello, Uncle John. I was waiting for you. Did you walk up through the woods alone?" The boy's voice held an odd note, which was emphasized by the look of fear in his dark eyes. He was only 8 years old and exactly like his mother. Thank heaven there was no trace of Jason's complacent materialism in his son. Mind and body, Tony was an utterly different type. I loved the boy, and a real friendship had developed between us, despite the disparity of our years. He was curiously sensitive and mature for his age, and it was a great thing for a bachelor like myself to have a child make a little teen god of me, as Tony did. "And why not walk alone through the woods?" I demanded, looking down at him as he rubbed his hand against my arm like some friendly coat. "I wouldn't," he replied simply. "Why not, old man? There aren't any wolves or bears or even Indians left here, are there?" "Don't laugh, uncle." The boy's voice sank to a whisper. "There is time to tell you now. There isn't time to tell you now, but there's something in those woods something you can see that is waiting. Okay. I thought I could have gone on reading until 6:30, but it seems that now my audience is a little tired. There are no new hosts. Sorry, there are no new guests, and I think this could be a perfect conclusion, a perfect ending to this Halloween live stream. An 8-year-old boy says that there is something waiting for us in the woods. How haunting. How very Halloween-like. So I leave you the pleasure to meet this laughing thing in the woods, alone, in these Halloween nights. Remember, we are reading this book, Queens of the Abyss, from the British Library, a collection of weird tales by women writers. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your company. And see you soon. Maybe on my Christmas live stream. The Christmas live stream dedicated to ghost stories for winter nights. And now, see you. Bye bye.